you a little bit of time to think about that for sure. So, Karen, let's hear kind of your story of, when you first tried some of these healing methods and the profound effect that they had on you. Did you notice them right away, or was it just kind of like a little bit of a buildup until you really started to see the effects of them?
Well, my very first one, I didn't even know that it was a healing modality. It was around like 2010, 11, when everything was kind of like,
Hmm.
and was laid off from a lucrative position, great people, everything was cozy. And I was just all of a sudden, my whole world, everything I was familiar with, everything I loved was like, okay, what's my life now? And I had a friend that was going on a trip somewhere at some campgrounds. And, oh, yeah, but I don't want to go by myself. So I was like, hey, I'm not working. I was pretty depressed. I was like, fine, whatever. And it turned out that it was actually a naturist private nudist campground. So, yeah, getting that sunlight. I threw a blanket out in front of the cabin. I was asleep in under 10 minutes. And I was always a very high stress, high productivity, go, 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 work, 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 buy the fancy shoes and the good watches kind of stuff. And so it was very strange. But as soon as I was like in nature with like totally strip away all the layers, you know, seriously. And it was just like the sun, feeling the air and and the pools, and it was just being in water without, the clingy spandex, creeping up all
Hmm.
over the place. So that was, I think back on that and how that was like a huge catalyst for me to be like, oh my gosh, I can relax. Like I'm not all balled up in stress and anxiety and worry and fear because, when you have nothing. So it took me to this place where I was like, okay, I'm just here. I'm in nature, watching the birds, watching the clouds float by, no
That's awesome.
expectations, didn't know anybody. So who cares? Because it's about 2 hours from where I live. So I was like, well, not going to run into anyone I know. So yeah, that was interesting. So that was like initially, and then yeah, around 2017 or so, or 2014, injury. So like a lot of my acceleration and catalysts were pain.
Hmm.
Basically, spirit had to be, keep kicking me because I would keep clinging. I'm like, oh, golden handcuffs kind of job. I'm like, it's fine. I get 4 weeks of vacation. That's all I cared about. And then it was, yeah, when your physical body goes and there's just so much pain, and that's when spend tons and tons of money on therapy after surgery. One massage from someone who does massage with Reiki. The next day, the pain was gone, and I was just like, I must learn everything that there is to know about energy, Reiki. And that took me down the path of, law of attraction and natural law, Hermetic philosophy, like all of it. Just my life exploded in so many crazy, wonderful, blessed ways. And as with many people, when 2020 happened, it was just like, okay, like I was comfortable enough and learned my lessons that I'm not going to go through the pain again. I'm going to walk away from what does not serve me. Because, yeah, being in an office environment, because I kept trying to maintain that kind of career, but, just let go and let God was basically the
Okay.
best healing for me, was learning that trust in myself and trust that I maintain my focus, my vibration, my attention, always on healing, always taking responsibility for what am I looking at, and just going from there. So yeah, a lot of great stuff. A lot of but yeah, process. And so my goal is to try to help people not have to hit that rock bottom, super painful stuff before they start making baby steps out of the matrix.
One thing I want to bring up, that a lot of people, it's what you initially started with at the beginning of your experience. A lot of people might find this to be unorthodox, especially, when we're talking about like, nudist areas and things like that. But, this is something looking at it in more of an objective light. And that's how I like to look at things because We have what I call, and I've spoken with, I think, each of you about this before, the collective shame. You know what I mean? That collective, subconscious shame. We're supposed to have shame. We're supposed to have this guilt about ourselves, how we look, how we, perceive ourselves. I can see how that was very healing for you, though, because, like, in some of those ways, like, you stripped yourself off of that shame. Like, you know what I mean? Because, here you are 2 hours away, you're on this campground, like, you don't really know anybody, and you just got wild with it and cool. Like, some people might be like, a little skeeved out by that. But honestly, like, I've in my experience, maybe not at a colony, but I've been in nature that way myself. And it's very freeing, and it kind of like makes you gain like a little bit more love for yourself, like,
Hmm.
and that deeper love and understanding for yourself, looking at yourself that way. And very interesting. No, the pain thing is definitely, I can understand that, from I've done some stuff for pain myself as well. And it's amazing on how we can fix this pain. We can, find a way to heal it that doesn't involve addictive opioid drugs.
Hmm.
I mean, we look at the opioid epidemic that's happening right now. I was a victim of that when I was younger. Thank goodness I'm out of it. But, like, it is. So that's an awesome story, Karen. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. Alrighty, Diana, let's hear, one of the first times you tried some of these healing modalities and how much it profoundly shifted and affected your life.
Yes. It's a journey, and I like what both girls said. And again, I feel the correlations. The universe started kicking my butt in 2012 because there's a lot I knew ahead of time. I'm a victim of laziness. I have the archetype of the loser, and that goes really far. It's not my main archetype, but I have it, and that can hold one back so profoundly because I knew a lot before I did a lot. And I had the book The Secret back when it came out. Like, so I knew this stuff yet did nothing. But the universe wouldn't let me get away with it. Come 2012, it started kicking my butt, and I started going on antidepressants and things like that. Even though I even knew better about pills, my dad was very strict. His friend once gave him a bottle of opiates, like whatever, I forget their consumer name, and Oxycontins, and I see them in his dashboard, and I'm like, oh, that's so cool, Dad, where'd you get these? And he grabs them out of my hand and he says, those are for losers, and he throws them out the window, and he yells at me for even looking at them, and I was just a teenager. But that stuck with me, and he did me a huge favor. My dad's very strict, so he did me a huge favor in a lot of ways because I always stayed very pure naturally. I drank and I did cannabis, but that's as far as I would really push it, beside the odd psychedelic. So I really had to do a lot of this on my own when the universe started kicking my butt. And the antidepressants, and anyone that's been on them would tell you they're not that helpful. They helped in the very beginning to like be like, oh, this is what I can do without it, but very quickly they become addictive, and very quickly they stop working. So I got fired in 2013, and I had to go off them, lost all my benefits. And that was the best thing that ever happened to me because I was able to dive in to learning my spiritual lessons, learning everything. I still wasn't doing the work though fully. I was doing the odd meditation and the odd thing, but it was still be years before I took it seriously. It was around, I want to say 218. 218, I jumped up in 216, but 218 I took a huge jump, and that's when I really 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 started taking it seriously. And it started with salt baths because I had a real eggshell around my aura, and I had learned to even like feel into that when I would meditate and try to do energy work, and I could feel it. So salt baths and sound healing took care, and that eggshell cracked away. I was also living in a steel building at the time, so I moved out into the country, and moving out into the country is, I can't recommend it enough. You kind of have to, if you live in a steel building, at least get out of the steel building because it will energetically block you in itself. So when I lived there, I would go outside into the city and ground, walk barefoot, didn't care I looked weird. Luckily, the city I was living in was like the number one place for waterfalls, and I would go hiking all the time, and that helped. But moving to the country was just an automatic, like, didn't even require work on my part except buying the house in the country, and just bam, huge level up. Now, after that, I'll name two other things because they were so visceral, so powerful, and so instant. And that was, I don't necessarily recommend church, but if you're going to do it at evangelical church where they're very serious about the music, like gospel churches, very serious about the music, and singing in that group environment, it did something to me, and I felt it in my chest like a like a paddle of a boat, viscerally, physically feeling it like it was actually happening. And it took years of trauma and energetic debris and eviscerated it like that. Like that. I went into church and had a hallelujah moment. I didn't tell anyone. Of course, I didn't talk to any of the people at church. There's like one girl I knew, and that's because she's my neighbor. And I don't talk to any, because I knew they were the, I knew I wasn't that type. I was in there in disguise. I felt like a charlatan because I knew what I was. I was just going because it's the only spiritual place you could go, but it had its benefits at the time. I don't go anymore, but if you're going to go, the singing in group. And then the second visceral experience is something that like I might have invented. And I would look forward to like bringing clients through that one day, because what it was just making videos on, I was trying to do this thing last year in February, where I was trying to put better quality into my videos and really edit them. I know how to edit, it's just a time issue. So I made these videos and I'm filming the actual talking part. So I already had the makeup of what I was making, which is unusual for my format. So I was really into the material already, and that's the medical industry and its corruption. And I'm trying to tell these people how corrupt the medical industry, but I could just hear them. I can already hear them arguing because I've been called this by my family and anybody I used to know. You're crazy. You're killing people with your advice. Yeah, I'm a murderer. I'm putting my own children in danger. Like the amount of things people will say to you about your own medical decisions is, well, I snapped. And I started screaming at them. I was like I was just going ham out, just roaring at them, right? It wasn't live, it was videotaped. So I watched back myself screaming at myself, or screaming at them really, and I saw, and I was like, because I've been very ashamed of my anger. Like I am very fire. I'm a Sagittarius, but beyond that, almost all of my elements are fire, like complete fire. So being angry was not foreign to me, and it was one of the biggest things I was ashamed of, that I'm a person that can get angry because it's not spiritual, right? Well, I looked at myself and I was like, she's still spiritual. In fact, I felt the fire of the spirit coming off her because I'm watching a video, and something happened to me. I was sitting right here in this chair, and I felt, I've since learned that's actually a Kundalini awakening that's permanent. At the time, I called it an anointing because I've heard it described in church, like, and it was golden, like energy that just flooded down on top of me, like someone was pouring liquid gold on my head, and I felt it, and I'm just literally like, okay, something's happening, like, and it was physical, it was real, it went all the way down my body, and after that, it was like the propeller times a million, and I was forever changed. My anger has actually, ironically, I still have moments. I'm still Sagittarius, but it's nothing like it used to be. It's nothing at all. It like disintegrated it, and it changed it. So now it's only ever righteous anger, and like a holy place of anger. It's no longer like something I would ever be ashamed of. Put it that way. But it was more than that. I'm permanently more positive. I'm just everything. Like, and I was already pretty spiritual before, but it was like a whoa, like a whole new being was basically put down upon me. Like a higher-ness physically was now a part of me, and I was bigger. I felt that, like etherically bigger, and that never went away. I stayed up for 3 days after that. I got insomnia and stayed up for 3 days after that, super happy and pleased, but that it had its, and then I super crashed, but I woke up still positive. It never left. It was amazing. I kept waiting, like, oh, this is going to wear off, as any spiritual experience sometimes does. It didn't wear off. So that was amazing. I would
That's
recommend other people
awesome.
doing the same. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, no, it's great when, because one of the topics I'm going to bring up next after we're all done sharing is I do want to talk about psychedelics, because I do know that a lot of people in our spiritual collective, but that's one of the things you said of permanence. And I think that's where we benefit from, doing these meditation methods, putting in the work, doing these healing methods, and making them a part of our being, something that we practice every day, because it causes that ego softening that these plant medicines do. but I feel they're more of permanence, kind of like what you were saying, the top down Kundalini awakening, which is the permanent one. It's not something that's temporary. I mean, as well as like, I think we've talked about this before, your higher self kind of leaving you those little clues like earlier in your life, like, your dad with the pills and the whole loser thing as well. So like, it's amazing, but no, I very beautiful experiences, Diana. Like, I think people, I think a lot of us in our community, even like what you were saying about going to church and singing and things like that, in the singing group, I think a lot of us, become very restrictive in our train of thought and our belief, but sometimes it's okay, to kind of let down those walls and go experience something like that. Maybe try something new. Don't, I think one of the biggest things that your stories just kind of told all of us is don't restrict yourself at all. Try a whole, play around, experiment, kind of make things your own. Like, don't follow any specific. And one of the biggest things I think, you guys have heard me gripe about this before. It's that fundamentalism thing. It's like, people choose the one thing, and we have to follow this one extreme, one straight path exactly to a T. And if you stray away from this path, you're not doing it right. And that's kind of like, I think that's getting tossed out now. We're now in a new age. There's new ways that are presenting themselves to us. And, and like I've said with some of you guys before, this is about a way of being. It's about a way of life. This is not, a religion where you have to like cramp down and hammer on the logistics and just, we have to face 33 degrees to the east-west when we're doing this, or it's not going to work out the way that we want it. So.
I tried that. Yeah, it doesn't help.
No. But like that's what I like about what you said, is you're showcasing that the experimenting and the trying these new things, it all kind of comes full circle, and it's all part of the same path. It's the new way of being. It's not, this religion. Very good, Diana. So David, let's move to you real quick. We didn't get a chance to hear from you a lot. So what are some of your favorite healing modalities, and what was, let's take your most favorite one that you use. What was the first experience using it like, and how profoundly did you feel the effect from it?
Well, probably the most, if you're going purely from like a healing modality, like what has healed me the most, and just probably, I mean, it's really hard to pick one, but 2 years ago, my friend Sandra, which honestly, we should get her on this call sometime. She'd be amazing. but
For sure.
She introduced me to the Ascended Master teachings, in particular, the Violet Flame. So she challenged me to do, she called it the 30-day Violet Flame Challenge. And basically she just got on her Facebook, and for about 30 minutes or an hour every day, she ended up not doing it every day, by the way. She didn't finish the 30-day challenge, but I did. but that's okay. She's great. but yeah, so she would get on there, and she had some old videos from Summit Lighthouse, Elizabeth Clare Prophet, which was very interesting to me at first, because I grew up in a very strict religious circle, and I had heard of Elizabeth Clare Prophet. She's the devil. Obviously, she's a new age devil, right? So I mean, that's what they have to say about it. And so I just started watching, listening, and you're supposed to follow along. You're supposed to speak these decrees out loud. I am a being of violet fire. I am the purity God desires. Well, in a Baptist church, you're definitely not supposed to say any of that. so ever. So, but as I was following along and repeating these words, it was almost like my soul broke down. I started weeping. It's like, wow, I can be the purity God desires. Now, that doesn't mean you say that and you're immediately, perfect. That's not how it works. It is, you are stating the intention. I am going to be what God has designed me to be. And once you speak that intention and you make it your intention and you stick with it over time, Spirit moves you in that direction, and all kinds of things start to change. And believe me, they did. I mean, that was just a beginning for me. And now the Ascended Masters are all over the place all the time. I can't get away from them. They won't leave me alone. It's a joke, kind of. But yeah, it's just and the thing about like violet flame energy, it's the seventh ray. It's the flame of transmutation. So it has the power to transmute any darkness, any dark energy or attachments into your highest good, and into the highest good potentially of anyone else around. So for example, if you have anger issues, well, working with the teachings of Saint Germain and the violet flame can actually help to transmute that kind of energy into righteous anger, or just channeling it into like power to be effective. Maybe that anger is just energy that needs an outlet.
No, that's great, man. And mantra like that, I would even go ahead and classify that into mantra. The violet flame, because when we talk about mantra, man, a lot of people think this is the mindset kicking in. It's got to be Sanskrit. It's got that's the only real way to do mantras. It's got to be Sanskrit. But no, even prayer is mantra, and especially the violet flame, prayer that you were talking about. That's a form of mantra. And one of the biggest things I talk about on my show a lot, I've talked about before, is cymatics. When we make talk and we say words, or when we hear a frequency, when we play those words or those frequencies through a medium, whether it be a non-Newtonian liquid or a Cialdini plate with sand or something like that, we see these beautiful geometric figures start to appear. And what's really cool is we make this geometry ourselves, based on what frequency we're vibrating at. And I feel a lot of the time that the mantras that we say actually elevates our body. There we go. Oh, we got a comment from Don Rogers. Smart looking group. Thanks for being here, Don. Appreciate you, man. But as I was saying, I feel like when we say these mantras or we say these prayers, that uplifts us to that frequency of this mantra and this prayer. Words, etymology, and where words come from too, man, very important things. I appreciate that comment, David. Thanks, man. That's awesome. Yeah, Don, you're definitely more than welcome to hop on next time for sure. But no, that's an amazing way, David. One of the ones, I'll just keep mine kind of short. My two experiences the most profound experiences I've had with internal alchemy healing modalities. I'll talk about my first Qigong experience, and then I will talk about my first Kriya, like I guess you could say one of my first intense Kriya experiences. Now I've done mantra too, and mantra does work. I've doing the Hanuman protection mantra for 2 years straight, 108 times. It takes a whole hour to say that mantra 108 times. So it was kind of grueling, but I had these amazing experiences through it. And I had one where actually Hanuman imparted his energy on me because I worked my ass off for that long in order to make it happen. But we'll talk briefly on that. I did the mantra 108 times, and I sat there, and I kind of afterwards just sat there and went in. And this was around after 2 years of doing it. And then I felt like this energy start to come over me. And I remember I saw his face looking at my face, and he kind of took his two fingers and pressed them into my forehead. And he was like, "Hey, we got Francis McDonough in the house. Thanks for being here, man. Appreciate it." And, it was very interesting to me. It was a very beautiful experience. I felt like I kind of worked through a lot of these different mental blocks that I had at the time, like especially like pushing yourself mentally, saying that kind of mantra for that long. It almost forces you into the neutral mind state. And it kind of helped me look at a lot of the things I experienced from more of this non-attached position. And it did help with anger. Anger is something I've dealt with myself. Being a Taurus and all, taming the bull was one of the biggest things that I had to do in my life, so that definitely helped with anger. My first Qigong experience I had, I remember I was, testing it. I was doing the 8 brocades, and you breathe a certain way and when you do Qigong. So I was like mimicking the breathing, and I got to the point where I could feel like my energy expand with an inhale, and I could feel it contract with an exhale. And it was like just such a very interesting experience for me, because I was like, I'm feeling my energy expand and contract based on my breath. And that's where like I started to make kind of all of these correlations, how they started to like connect. And I'm like, wait a minute, So this is how this works. My energy and my breath are correlated. These two are, they work with each other. And then one of the one that's helped me the most, and I know you guys joke I'm a spokesperson for it. I don't mind saying I'm a spokesperson for Kundalini Yoga, because it does. It truly works. Like it does. And I think that's one of the reasons why people call it taboo, because I kid you not, if we had our whole collective doing Kundalini Kriyas right now, the mental health care system would fly out the window. The physical health care system would fly out of the window. We would just have a bunch of people healing themselves without the need of any kind of, pharmaceutical industrial complex or, the medical industry itself. But I remember Kriyas, I think the most is what profoundly changed me. Like, kind of like Diana and what David were saying, I had a pretty messed up life. It wasn't the most messed up by any means. I'm sure people had it worse than me, but it was still pretty messed up. And I still kind of carried, there was things that I didn't find closure on. The Kriya, started releasing all of that trauma, all of those old things from my subtle body. And I started to be able to face them in a way that I could find my own closure and find my own understanding. Because one of the biggest things about healing, especially when we're trying to recover from things that happen to us in our life. And it's a common story that all of us share on our spiritual evolution. We had some fucked up things happen to us. Like, it's just kind of what it is, and I'm not saying that's required to be on your spiritual evolution, but, that's usually what pushed us towards the light. And what the Kriya did for me is it allowed me to face these things that I probably still won't ever get closure for. You know what I mean? It allowed me to face them. It allowed me to find my own closure. It allowed me to understand that forgiveness isn't just about forgiving the other person. Forgiveness is for you too. So you can release this weight that you're carrying with you from this experience you had in your life that ingrained you with this trauma. And so, and that's what Kriya did for me. I can't say enough good things about it. I honestly think we all should be doing it. Of course, everybody's, journey is unique to them. That's just my thoughts. And, but nonetheless, I brought it up a little bit ago, let's talk about a popular healing modality a lot of people in our community use, psychedelic and entheogenic compounds. I myself have utilized these compounds in the past to help kind of break through certain things. And the number one thing I'm going to say about them is, yes, they're extremely helpful. Most certainly. Hold on. We got a quick one from Don Rogers at Mark. A lot of us experiencing this spiritual remembering experience. The streets are rough times before. Most certainly, man. Most certainly. And you know, and I know, Don, but But nonetheless, we have Francis too, real quick. Hold on. When I used to be a smoker, I remember feeling anxiety each time I would take a puff. Yes, exactly. Nicotine will do that. I still a habit. I am trying to quit myself. I don't smoke, but I use the pouches, and I'm trying to stop. That's one of my last unhealthy habits I need to kick. But psychedelics, I've utilized them myself before. And yes, they help. They're tremendous helpers. But I think what's happening is people are becoming reliant on them. I think when we look at a lot of the psychedelic community at this time, not a lot of them take integration of the experiences into full account. I mean, we're looking at so many people who just want to repeat the experience as soon as they possibly can without integrating the first one. However, since it has become kind of a popular healing modality, the good that I see in it too is this is going to be kind of a stepping stone for humanity, because now that these entheogenic compounds are becoming accepted, especially in a healing format, and being used at healing centers or in ceremonial use, I think this is going to help collective humanity kind of get over this little hurdle that we have right now. Especially when it comes to, the subconscious victim mentality and the not wanting to accept personal accountability, for their actions. I think that's the stepping stone. But nonetheless, let's move over to Kirsten real quick. Have you used psychedelic compounds before? What are your thoughts on them? And do you think they are beneficial, or could they have a downside too that not a lot of people are looking at?
Well, I think there's good and bad in everything. I have used them. I did actually use them extensively when I was in my youth, back in the late 1980s. And so I did a lot of LSD and a lot of mushrooms at the time. And they really did help me, I think, to step onto my spiritual path in a lot of ways. However, they didn't do that for everyone. And, I became also the person who had to hang out with the person who was having the bad trip, because I could maintain and and they couldn't sometimes. And so that kind of showed me a lot that not everyone is ready for that kind of experience. First of all, I think you need to get to a point where you are ready for it to become a spiritual thing. Now, I knew other people who just did it for fun, and they would say, well, it's like watching a movie, and they just thought of it that way, and it didn't really help them either. I think, one, you need to have some kind of intention when you do it. And I also think I have seen people become so addicted to that feeling that they get when they take them, that they don't really progress. They just keep going back, as you said, to that, I'm going to microdose every single day from now on because I feel good when I'm in that place. And I think that ultimately you want to move to a point where you can do that for yourself without having to take some substance to do it. And so, so I think there's an upside and a downside, and, just like there is to everything. So, but I really feel that it can be helpful for a lot of people. I think when you haven't ever had a peak experience from something else, meditating or something, that really can show you, oh, this is where I can go. But then the rub is, well, I've got to figure out how to do that without taking something outside of myself.
Oh, 100%. No, I'm with you. And, I got that call myself. I completely understand. It's especially, I want to talk about, sitting with somebody who wasn't exactly ready for the experience. I have done that. I have been somebody along those lines too. Not that I wasn't ready. I was overzealous. I talk about the time where back in not Labor Day, Memorial Day weekend of 2023, I thought it was a great idea to try 600 micrograms of LSD all at once. And Later in the experience, I was in the basement under my blanket in the dark going, it's not the LSD's fault, Steve. It's your fault because you thought that taking 600 micrograms was a good idea. And but nonetheless, I'm with you. No, and not everybody is exactly ready for that kind of experience yet. I feel like it does kind of come when it is your calling. I feel like a lot of people get exposed to it when it kind of is your time. What I think people should do, there should be more of a guideline. And I actually work with two people or a few people who are really big in the psychedelic community of what to expect during these experiences or how to prepare for these experiences, because we're looking at things that, you know, they cause ego death. And if you're not ready for ego death, if you're not ready to enter that state, it can be scary. It can, for somebody who's unaware of what's happening. So that's something I would like to see. And when I do have the people from the psychedelic community on my show, that's something I'm going to bring up to them. That show will be in April, guys. I'll let you know as we get closer. Real quick before I hop to Karen, I got a question from Don. What would the panel suggest for an average person? Microdosing and raise it gradually, or blast off and have the breakthrough experience? I'll go ahead and we'll do a group answering of that real quick after we're going to talk with everybody. Don, I'll go ahead and give you my opinion on it. It really depends on the individual and the trauma they have to unpack. If you're looking at somebody for veterans and people with severe PTSD, I would personally recommend the microdose route. Yes, because we're looking at a lot to unpack here, especially things that involve death, and especially if that individual was involved in that death too. That can be a very hard thing to unpack or deal with in a peak experience. And that's kind of what I'm going to say there. Really, it's up to the individual. I would gauge it as this. It depends on what you're trying to unpack. It depends on the time you have, the space that you have. These peak blast off breakthrough experiences, they normally take the whole day. And sometimes you need a couple of days to recover afterwards, to kind of fully integrate everything that's going on. So, I mean, it depends on the person. I can't really give you a strict guideline, but, you will know what's right for you. That's the best thing I can say when it comes to that. But Karen, let's kind of hop over to you. Have you experienced psychedelics before? Have you embarked on a psychedelic journey? And what are your thoughts and opinions about them entering the healing world and being a healing modality for people looking to kind of heal and recover from life experience?
Well, I think there's so much amazing potential. Personally, I have not done just cannabis, but which is funny that I never even really partook in it until after I was 40. My injury, the pain, realizing just how horrible all the painkillers were and what they were doing to me and breaking my brain. And I was like crying to my husband. I'm like, please don't go to work. I don't want to be alone. It's like, he would have cared more. I was like, if I had a broken arm, you would have taken me more seriously. But it was just, and then researching and realizing, oh my gosh, all of this medicine from, medical institutions are not great. So I use cannabis as a way to, for pain management, but also relaxation. But for me, as far as using it is with intention. And I've seen people that just kind of use it as a crutch, or they're used to it because that makes them feel good, instead of, hey, that's enhancing it, doing it with intention of, hey, I'm going to connect with something, to help me with whatever particular issue that I'm trying to overcome, or, melt away some kind of an obstacle. And I was doing that last night. This is the first time I've ever done a live stream ever. So I was just like, yeah, man, there's nothing to fear. It's like I'm finding my tribe. Only child, grew up in the Poconos, so yeah, I love waterfalls. I used to jump off them. Also a Pisces, so I've got all kinds of crazy emotional energy. So grounding for me is very important, but also finding that balance of like, yes, tapping into a little bit of getting out of my head, out of my body. So yeah, I'd be very interested to try
Excellent.
try the
Well, no,
psychedelic, but just trusting that when I meet the right person, the right guide, the right opportunity, I'm not opposed to it, but just trusting divine timing. Because when I reach that point where I'm maintaining that frequency for long enough to receive it, but also to be able to use it responsibly, not just get something and then be all wobbly, with your energy. But yeah, a lot of potential, a lot of potential. So, and working through the self-judgment, like, oh, is that, it creeps in like, oh, like, what are you doing? But absolutely with intention and focus, that when you intend for healing, you connect with it and bring it through. That has been my experience.
100%. One thing a lot of people forget is cannabis is a psychedelic. It works on a different mechanism than your typical psychedelics do. But no, cannabis itself is a psychedelic. I remember my very early experiences with cannabis when I first started using it. I would get very psychedelic experiences, and I still do, depending on the certain strain or whatever I'm using at this time. But no, absolutely intention for sure. And attention with anything. I mean, I think it's even a good idea to have an intention with your cup of coffee. Because it does. We talk about how our belief, our consciousness interacts, our mental faculties interact with the physical experience around us. Having your intention, even for something like a cup of coffee, a meal, great things to do, great things to practice, especially when you're using a plant compound that can alter your state of consciousness. That intention can make or break the experience, and I've noticed that when you go into these experiences with that intention, it's almost as if the plant reciprocates and it guides you along that intention during the experience as well. So very cool, very cool. Yeah, a lot of people forget cannabis is a psychedelic. It is. It's just one you can happen to use every day if needed. The other ones you can't really do that with. They don't have the same effect. With microdosing, it's one thing, but trying to use macro doses consistently day after day, it's just going to stop working. So but that falls into the abuse. But nonetheless, Diana, let's get to you. Let's talk about your opinions on psychedelics, your experiences with them, and your thoughts on them.
Well, I'm a fan, but to use them sacredly. So I've said this story before. I even said it on our panel that my first and only ever time doing the drug E caused me to realize I was God, and I knew the Akashic records. I was accessing all information and answering every question that was asked of me correctly. But I ended up explaining that away. I was 17 at the time, and that went away for a long time. Never did E again since, and never had actually such a powerful experience again since. But it's a more dangerous drug, and I like to stick to the ones that are therapeutic and medicine, and the ones that have been shown evidence-based wise to do us more good than they ever would harm. And that's psilocybin and cannabis. And you can take them in multiple different forms and in multiple different varieties. And to your friend's point there earlier, Dawn, they have two different things that you can do with them. So a certain person, it depends what they're looking for. It's like buyer's choice. Are you looking to bang it out and go through incredible pain? Because I don't know a person that's I've never had fun on psilocybin ever. Like, there's been the odd microdosing pleasantness, but for the most part, if I ever did a large quantity, it was a horrible time. But it was shamanic. You'd be face to face with your own darkness and your own faults And like the beings that come to you, they'll tell you how much you suck in all these different ways, and they don't hold bar, and they just keep it going, and you're just like destroyed. I would like cry. I would use it for crying because I don't cry. That's a fire thing, I guess. I don't cry normally. So I would cry on psilocybin and just like release. So it was a huge release, but also an upgrade because they would come to me with all my problems. And even before I was as wake as I am now, like in my early 20s, when I was like trying to, I call it now pretending I was an atheist. I used to always say I was an atheist. You know what? No, I wasn't. I just kept trying to make myself an atheist. I've never been an atheist for real in a day in my life because I've so always been connected. I would just let them tell me I was schizophrenic and just let that be what it was and just call myself crazy. But no, I've just always been spiritual and experienced myself as spiritual, and honoring those things I used to think were bad were actually good. And it's funny, you said you didn't need to do a lot of psychedelics, Karen, because you're a Pisces. You're like a walking psychedelic. And it's funny. And then even as you were saying, Kirsten, that you had friends that did these drugs, but they didn't awaken. Well, my brother, he could tell you about drugs, and he doesn't do any of the scary ones that are typically addictive, but he's found him. He's should be better now, hopefully, but we'll see. He's much younger than me, so he's still allowed in a party stage, perhaps. But he does all kinds of psychedelics all the time. He's super into acid. He's done all kinds of things. He refuses to awake. He still calls himself an atheist. So it shows you like these drugs, when done in excess, are not going to automatically spiritually awaken you. You have to be spiritually inclined. And I've realized I've always been spiritually inclined. And our friend, Cannon Man, right? Like, Stephen,
Cannon
him.
Man, yeah.
I invited him to join this, but he wouldn't. But he appreciated.
He's not a podcast fan. Cannon Man, you got to hop on with us one time, man. Come on.
Yeah,
I tried inviting him on. He doesn't do podcasts. He said he would consider it though. But I that's good you asked him.
Yeah, I know, because he's so wise. But just yesterday he was saying, and I felt that, and that's so true, that like when you do cannabis, it's getting into your etheric realm. And it's like, I always plan on quitting one day, and it used to be a space of shame for me. It still is a little because I do it with vaping, and vape's not healthy. I would love to but like, I don't want the smell, and there's all kinds of reasons I stick to the vape. But I know the vape's not healthy. However, cannabis, I always thought I'd get to a point where I didn't need it anymore. But it's Jacob's ladder, because it teaches me higher, and then I jump higher, and then it teaches me higher, and then I jump higher. So it's like my shamanic journey. And that those old books, I never remember the title, where the guy has a shaman, and they're like in Mexico or something, or it's South America, and he's teaching him about the peyote spirit and how it takes you on a journey, and it's your trainer. It could be a mean trainer sometimes, or it can be nice. You have to honor the plant. You have to treat it like as a living being. So I do that with Mother Cannabis. Like, she is a being to me, and she teaches me, and she talks to me, I swear, like in the ways that spirit talks. And same with psilocybin, but cannabis is nicer to me. Like, so but psilocybin is equally probably as helpful, but it's going to be stronger punches and more pain. Like, it's just a concentrated dose. So that's my journey, and I'm still on it. I don't so much with psilocybin anymore. I've gotten to a point where it's like every time I think, I'm like, no. I still have some if I ever need it, but I stick mostly to cannabis now.
Dude, I'll tell you what, that made me laugh hard, because yes, the mushrooms, they will let you know. That's the best way I can describe it, is they'll let you know when you're fucking up. They will not hide it, and yes, they will spiritually waterboard you while you're there in the in tryptamine space. But no, they do mean well. I've had I guess the best way is I've had positive experiences, but to get to the positive part, I had to go through the drudges first. Like, like the mushrooms would take me, they would take my face, and they'd be like, look at all this shit you've been doing that we don't approve of. And it's like, and it'll be like little things too, but then they're like, but look, we know you're trying. Like, we know you're doing your best. So we're gonna lighten off of you for the last half of this experience. And I'm just like in tears, like on my floor, like, oh my God, I'm good. Thanks for that. But no, I totally with you. And yes, kind of even what Karen was saying too, like setting intention with the cannabis, treating it as a spirit. That's for me why a lot of people I've had a good experience on salvia, and a lot of people are like, what? You've had a good experience on salvia? I'm like, yeah, because the plant spirit didn't appreciate it that she was being advertised as a party drug and an alternative to cannabis. And that's why when we saw the salvia spike in the late 2000s into the early 20 teens, I mean, it followed a whole bunch of bad slew of experiences. And I was involved in one of those bad experiences because I was young. I didn't know what I was doing, vice versa. But I remember I got some and I gave it respect. I was like, listen, I know the first time I tried you, and that you didn't really like me that much, but let's start fresh. Let's give this a try. And when I gave the spirit the respect it deserved, it was a beautiful experience, and it let me through. And it's this is why I was so pissed off. And then it let me know it was being advertised as a party drug, when in all reality, if you've ever tried Salvia divinorum, it's an intensely shamanic healing plant. And the spirit even let me know, don't come here unless you're trying to heal. If you try to come here for a good time, I'm going to show you a good time. Not necessarily with sarcasm, but it is. You come here to heal. That's why you come here. You're not here to have fun, is basically the message that I got when I was in the experience. And then I kind of gained a little bit more of an understanding. So totally, these entheogens do have spirits. They have a spiritual nature attached to them. And we have to take that in consideration with, our intention and the way we utilize the experience properly. David, let's get to you, man. And then we'll kind of give a closeout of everything. Also, we'll give a sum up on certain things after David's done. But David, what are your thoughts on psychedelics? Let's hear some of your experiences. And did you find them beneficial?
Oh, yes, for sure. That absolutely. But I would echo what Kirsten said, that, your mileage may vary. It's not for everyone. And I think that for people who are, say, starseeds, indigos, etc., it's naturally going to have a different effect than on someone who isn't, whatever that is. Because we're just made differently. So we have something in our body, in our head, in our spirit that is connected to that divine cosmic source. And even if it's been beaten or poisoned out of us, it's still there. And if you take something like cannabis or shrooms or LSD or DMT, any of that stuff, it's going to reawaken that connection. Maybe not right away. I mean, I experimented with LSD and cannabis probably a year, maybe longer, before I really had a profound experience. Before that, I was just trying to have a good time. I was just trying to party. And then one night, this was not long after the pandemic started, I'd had some LSD and I was taking a shower, and I started to have this really dark, just disturbing trip vision. And I'd never had anything like it before. And I saw all these screens, and I saw all these spider webs connecting all the screens. And this voice said to me, it's this is everyone in the world who's on social media, and they are infected with a computer virus for the human brain. It's spread by the algorithms of Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And then it said, oh, and you have it too. and I did. And so I just kind of stared at that vision for a while, really disturbed, not knowing what to do about it. It really kind of freaked me out. I had a similar experience a few months later. And then again, I was reminded of that when I came home from the hospital after having COVID and pneumonia, right before I had my near-death experience. And what I ended up doing at that time is I took a cold turkey break from all social media. Obviously, I'm back now, but at that time, it ended up being exactly what I needed to do. Just getting away from all social media and just focusing on being here and now, and it really helped me to refocus and not be so driven by the social media. Now that was just kind of like the beginning. Okay. I mean, I would say my experience with psychedelics has probably been a lot more extreme than what most people would look for, or even what I would recommend for most people. I've definitely kind of used myself as a bit of a lab rat. Okay, I'm kind of a mad scientist, and so I can tell you a lot about a lot of different substances and what they'll do and what to do and what not to do with them. I would say like for the most profound experience, ketamine can cause like an out of body experience. And when that happens, I rejoin my higher consciousness, which I mean, not to brag, but it's basically, what we call God the Father. That's the consciousness I join when I do this. So I kind of like have this awareness of everything ever. and I mean, it's gotten pretty weird sometimes. Like I can see my future. I can see everything that's going to happen, but I also know that it won't last. And when I'm in this state, I'm in a state of perfect peace and bliss because I know that everything is going to work out, because I know it's not just a belief. And another interesting thing about ketamine is, and look, anything I say is not a recommendation. Like I'm not recommending anybody do anything, right? Everyone has to decide for themselves what they are going to do. But every time I've had like a profound ketamine experience, it's almost like it picks up where the last one left off, even if it's like months or a year later. So it's really been interesting. Yeah, and then also, DMT. Now, DMT is an interesting one because I've heard that that one time, I don't know how long ago, maybe in the ancient past, but DMT used to be like much more common in our atmosphere. We would just be breathing it all the time. And even, Moses, he saw the burning bush. The burning bush, they say, according to tradition, was an acacia tree, which is rich in DMT. It's where we get it from a lot of times. And, if you look at that experience that he had speaking to the flame in the burning bush, I mean, honestly, that wasn't my first DMT experience was kind of like that too, in a lot of ways. Like I can relate to Moses. It's kind of interesting how after you go through these experiences and then you go back and read, stories of old prophets and people who worked with divine beings. It's like, oh, now I understand what this is like. It's quite interesting.
Dude, I'll tell you what, man, ketamine is a very interesting experience, a very interesting compound. I've had experiences with it. I think I talked with you and Diana about this, where I woke up in like almost like the stasis chamber of where I'm like projecting my consciousness into this reality.
Yes.
And it was very strange. And I could feel the technology and the devices that they had that were monitoring me too.
Yeah.
I could feel them like spinning around me, and like it's interesting because I would wake up and then I would like for just a second I'd realize what was going on, and then I would like come back into where I'm at now. And it's very profound. And the one thing I will say about ketamine is, yes, it's not your typical psychedelic. It's what's known as a dissociative. So definitely have respect with it for sure. But no, the experiences on ketamine are very profound, and they're mostly almost all the time positive. It's very interesting how it works that way. But nonetheless, guys, let's give it a good close off for today. This was a very interesting conversation. I enjoyed, sitting and listening to all of your different healing modalities. So let's kind of start with Kirsten. Kirsten, if there's anything you want to leave the viewers and the listeners with when it comes to healing, what would those words be?
Well, healing is a very individual path. And I think it's really good to be able to share our templates for how we've done it. But I think everyone ultimately needs to remember that your best healing guide is yourself and your heart space and your higher self. And if you ask for help, you will be guided to the things that will help you the most. So yeah, so listen to other people, do, and take from that, but always trust your own inner guidance on what you need to do, because it will be different for everyone. I've never known two people who healed in exactly the same way.
I dig that. I dig that. Of course, and that's the thing. Like, one thing I'll add is we have a bad habit of having the attachment of expectation to others' experiences. Like, we'll hear somebody's successful experience, and we'll think that's going to happen in the same way for us. It might happen for you, but in your own way. Definitely agree with that, Kirsten.
Right.
Diana,
Right.
what are your words you want to leave the viewers and the listeners with when it comes to healing?
The same thing. I'll listen, because they'll tell you, like, you
Your microphone, Diana.
figure you guys are too.
Yeah. No worries. Okay, all right. What was I going to say? Let's go to Karen next. What are your final words for everybody when it comes to healing?
Well, when it comes to healing, definitely go within, breathe, breathe. Stop holding your breath. Just breathe. You don't need to make it complicated. You don't need to memorize a million mantras. I'm a huge fan of the Violet Flame mantras, but sometimes when I was first starting out, I would just sit and all I would say is, "I'm okay. I'm okay. I'm okay," and breathe. And just soothing your nervous system, and as Diana had mentioned earlier about the fascia and like stretching and like giving your body the rest, and salt baths. I love water as a healing modality, like just soaking in the tub. Get some CBD bath bombs and just like, and I even do, talk to the water, the cymatics. You understand, water communicates, and be in the water. Allow the energy of that water to work with your energy, and because you're all at once. So just allow, breathe, trust. And if I were, well, what I say to people that come for Reiki or learning workshops and things like that, your number one job is to feel good. That's it. It's not selfish. Self-care is not selfish. Selfishness is not one of the seven deadly sins. Um, it's your life. Feel good about it. Have fun. And that once keep pulling yourself in. Does this make me feel good? No, then no. Find something that'll change your thoughts and your emotions, your frequency, to something that feels less painful. I mean, yeah, I was really stressed now because I have two pugs and I've never done a live stream. But it's like, hey, you know what? What's the worst that happen? I can hit mute. I'm not gonna, I didn't think anyone was gonna be like, but that's the thing. People, we overthink it, overjudge it. Just let it go. Be okay. You know, Everything's going to be okay. You create your reality. When you keep saying it's going to be okay, it always works out. It always will. Breathe and allow is my favorite, no frills healing modality. Talk to yourself, talk to your body. I'm okay. It's all good.
I dig it, and that's a great way to sum it up. We'll go to David the Lion next. What are some of the final words for healing that you would like to say to the viewers in the audience?
Well, healing is, it really starts up here in here, right? No matter what the condition is, our outer world is a reflection of our inner world, right? And Saint Germain said, sickness and poverty are not conditions that are in accordance with a divine child of God. So why would you ever say, I am sick, I am poor? You wouldn't. You shouldn't. So And it's not just about what you say, okay? They're trying to teach a lesson. Don't just say it, feel it, be it. So when you change your mindset to one that is living as, health is my inheritance, wealth is my inheritance. Even if you don't feel it right now, okay? When you change your mindset to one where it's like, oh, health is my natural state, wealth is my natural state, things start to change. And if you keep embodying that, they start to change faster and faster. And I started doing this, like I am affirmations. I didn't even know what I was really doing at the time. Somehow I just started doing it. 2.5 years ago is when I really started that work. And things have not necessarily gone the way that I thought. They haven't gone necessarily the way that I, like when I started saying those things, that I envisioned them going, that I thought would be, oh, this is going to be my perfect life. No, it hasn't exactly gone like that. In some ways, it's a lot better. And in some ways, it's not there yet. Yet being the key word, right? What is it? I'm trying to think of the saying, because I sent it to you guys in the chat this morning. It's like, oh, be detached from the outcome. Make your requests known to the divine, adding this. I'm butchering it a little bit, but adding this or something better according to divine will in every prayer. And I have tried to adopt that mindset, and it really does work.
I would completely agree. When one of the things when we're saying I am, we're immediately casting ourselves to being that aspect or that thing we're describing we are. So, this is why it's important, to really be careful with what you speak into this existence. And, like if you say, I am tired, if you say this, this, and this, then you're going to get more of that. So, especially on the mornings, you might wake up and you might feel tired, and you just have to say, I am grateful to be taking another breath today. I am grateful for, being able to feel, even if it might not be the best feeling right now. And that's kind of like how we switch it around. So the one thing I'll let everybody know is guys, listen to everything they just said. And the one last thing I'm going to say is this: healing should be the most important aspect of our spiritual evolution. It should be. This is what opens us up to receiving deeper information. This is what can open us up to handling this deeper information. It conditions us to walk into a new way of being and a new way of life. And we know that that's what we're striving for at this time. We cannot walk into a new way of being and a new way of life if we're carrying the aspects of the old way in with us. And what this healing allows us to do is it allows us to shed these old aspects to make way for these new ones that we can cultivate and grow within ourselves to not only be a better person for our families, our loved ones, our community, other human beings. So that would be my stressing on the importance of healing. Don't get me wrong, the tarot cards are fun, the crystals are fun, they're tools, they can be utilized in all of this, but these aren't the premises of spirituality. I mean, I feel like that, the real spiritual doctrine is that healing and opening ourselves up to these deep inner truths that aren't available in any of the books that we're looking at and that are available to us. And then, guys, that's the biggest thing I could say to you is the healing will pave the way for that deeper truth. It will. And it'll allow you to integrate it on a much deeper level. All right, guys, if you want to check out everybody who's been on the panel, in both the Rumble and the YouTube descriptions. I have everybody's X profiles, even the two that could not make it today, Raquel and Sam. So if you guys want to check them out and see what they're up to and the projects they're working on, I have everybody's links down at the bottom. And other than that, guys, remember, no show this Wednesday. I will be back on Thursday with Don Rogers of March 4th Productions, who actually joined us here in the chat today. And I will be doing my live talk at Liberty on the Rocks here in Denver. I have the information pinned to the top of all my socials. So if you are in the area and you want to come hear me talk and hopefully try to bring a little bit more common sense back to everything that's going on right now, a different kind of vision, a more solution-based vision, a more positive mindset to what we're experiencing, and you want to meet me, then yeah, come on down and check it out. Other than that, check out everybody here, guys, who are listening and who are watching this. Check them all out. They've got great things to contribute to our collective. They're all doing great things. So yes, please give everybody here a like and a follow. Other than that, everybody, I will catch you on Thursday. You all have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. Take care and have a good one, everybody.